Hello, everyone. My name is Tatiana St. Germain with Great People Management. I'm an assessment expert, talent advisor to companies that actually care about their people. And I'm an executive coach to leaders all over the country. I am joined today by Tim Lesnick, who's a co-founder of Trova and a recognized leader in talent strategy and recruiting, and a dear friend. Tim, you want to say a few words? What brings you to this topic of
A few
hiring?
words, a few
No,
words
just a
indeed, Miss
few,
Ian.
just a few.
Yes, thank you for
Introduce
having
yourself.
me. I like that introduction. Look, I would just say something's in the water, and there's a hiring shift going on. It's kind of going back to the employers a little bit, but the dichotomy between hiring well, and hiring fast and efficiently, that divide and that gap, I think gets bigger as the more technologically advanced with AI and other tools, where the gap and symptoms of bad hiring are starting to show up faster, sooner. So we're trying to help you digest that today.
Yes, that's a perfect segue. Yes, what we're seeing, what's changing, what continues to change, and what are some of the shifts that already occurred that are permanent, and we're not going to swing back and forth on some of these trends. So we'll talk about that if I can move my mouse correctly. So what's changing and specifically how to adapt your selection in hiring. Last month, so this is a webinar, a second webinar in a series of three webinars. Last month, we got together and talked about hiring mistakes that even great companies, smart people make, human biases that get in the way of hiring the right person. And we talked about how to avoid them. So that was a very robust conversation, I thought. And now we wanted to talk more about specific things that are changing, how data creates a clearer view of candidate capability. And the reason we wanted to dig a little deeper on some of these topics that we touched on last time is because it continues to feel like it's getting harder, or it's just hard for everyone to find employment, and then companies keep complaining about not being able to find great talent. Some even say, this statistic, 63% of employees say it's harder to find great talent than last year. So that's by comparison, 2025 and 2024. And I had a friend who applied for 500 jobs, and she could not even get an interview. My son was looking for a job. He applied for, maybe not, he was not as, he didn't apply himself as hard as my friend who applied for 500 jobs, but he did apply for dozens of positions, and it was really difficult to even get an interview. So what's going on? It just feels really hard for everyone, for both sides. That's why we wanted to shine the light on this topic. So how we'll spend our time today, Tim and I will have a conversation, and I appreciate your insight and your kind of real life experience with your clients. Um, we will talk about what continues to change. We'll unpack some of those items, how data creates a clear view of candidate capability, and we'll talk about future-ready approach to stronger hiring decisions. So, spoiler alert, I will be talking about an assessment that is actually, it's a proven tool to help you, to help you build a better approach to better hires, and elevate your hiring system. This is going to be, as if you're familiar with some of our webinars, this is going to be a conversation between Tim and I primarily, but please chime in with questions either through chat or unmute yourself, go on camera, and we'd love for you to chime in. I prefer a conversational approach to these webinars. All right, so the four trends that I wanted to highlight today in this webinar, and we'll dig into each one of these. And by the way, if I'm looking to the right of the screen, I'm looking at the slides. Skills-based hiring, how we evaluate candidates is changing. We're going to be talking about skills testing specifically. Remote and hybrid work. We're going to go deeper into remote and hybrid work and evaluating candidates for that type of work in our third webinar on March 25th. But we will touch on what's changing and where and how work happens, changing what some of the trends that are here to stay. We will dig a little deeper in AI and automation. With some fads and some topics that come up, it seems like they become popular and then they go away. AI doesn't seem, and I think everybody would agree it's not going anywhere. It's only going to continue to be a source of excitement and a source of frustration. Both, it's going to continue to proliferate every aspect of our work and certainly impacts how we hire, how we select, how we screen, how we make decisions. So AI and automation, how we source and screen candidates will continue to change. And in fact, it's changing so fast, I'm getting whiplash. I think it's changed since last webinar, to be honest. Um, and then data-driven hiring. Finally, what can be done to take all of these major trends into account and still ensure that you have a solid hiring process? So let's talk about skills-based hiring. It continues to reshape selection. This is not a new approach. We've all heard of skills testing. Skills testing's been around since jobs have been around. It's just more formalized, and many, many organizations use this, but just as many are here don't use it. Um, what, and I wanted to throw this over to Tim instead of reading all the statistics. You can look at these. What are you seeing, Tim, when it comes to skill? Many of your clients use skills testing, and what are the pluses and the minuses that you see?
Yeah, the first thing I like to tell folks is to hire for the skills that you cannot train, for the skills that you cannot train or cannot afford to train, right? Either one of those. Because the reality of it is you focus too much on skills and then the person shows up with all of their people problems and responsibilities and their personality. And honestly, when you dissect a job and a job description, which I do for a living every day for 24 years, after going through what the client really needs on our 1 to 2 hour intake, depending. Sometimes it's more than one call. Too often it's more than one call because they think of something the next day or a week later or this. And if I were to digest what they tell me, very little of it is skills. Most of it is like personal traits, EQ, how they're going to fit in the job, what are they going to do. So what people think are skills, they're trying to get all the skills and the things the stuff they need to get done down. But the reality of it is when you dissect exactly what they need to have someone do the job well, there's a massive gap between those two. So skill-based hiring is long since been out. And this even applies on a factory floor. There used to be a time when you could be like, hey, I just need the person to stick the widget in the thing on the factory. No, you need them to show up on time, be safe, be smart, be responsible. You need them to be reliable, be quick, right? And it's like, I don't just need them to stick the arm and the hammer on the factory floor. There's a whole bunch of other like skills other than having the technical verification to do the thing. Same thing with IT, right? Having enough knowledge to understand what AI is doing, not rely on AI to know enough when you don't know when it's wrong. You need to be above the understanding of what the discipline is. So skill-based hiring, very dangerous is what I say.
Well, there are benefits to it if the job requires you to know Excel, let's say. Remember, Tim, you and I were talking about this.
Yeah.
You will, yeah, that makes sense that you want to evaluate current Excel skills. So then that will answer a very narrow question. Can this person be proficient in utilizing Excel? However, it does not answer the question of do they fit the job? To your point, will they show up on time? Will they fit our culture? So it does improve The hire it's better than just relying on the resume when you're hiring. At least you're testing for something. Um, and when you're utilizing skills testing, you've got to make sure that it's job relevant. So you don't pick your pet tests, um, and it then you come to find out it's not even relevant to the job.
Yeah,
And
I meant exclusively, right? Like
right,
obviously that is one thing you want to try to verify the skills, but are you really verifying the skills by asking the questions or depending on how you're asking leading questions and stuff? Certainly in some jobs 40 to 50% of the job may be the skill. You know, I used to say back in the day, 80% of the job was skill for IT. Can they do the thing? How you assess it and what do you know what the answers to the questions give you what you need, or that you know even the answers to the test prove that the person knows it well and does it well for your company. Like I always say, I could probably get 100 on an Excel test, but I know it at maybe a little bit above entry level. I'm no accountant, right? So at the end of
right,
the day, that gives you a false sense of security because they do well on one skill-based test that they actually know how to do the thing.
exactly. And that I'm seeing more and more limitation because things change so fast. So if we keep picking on Excel test skills test. So let's continue in that. Let's say 2 years ago you used a skills test. You made sure that this person knows Excel. Well, in the last 2 years, what happened with AI? All of those skills are basically relevant. They're replaced with AI. And now we're looking at this person is no longer a good fit for the job. They don't have the required skills to cope with the demands of the position, not just today, not just in this moment, but also in the future. We have to build, whenever we're hiring today, we have to hire people who are future ready. So hiring for potential, that's what's going to be important. And that will not, you will not be able to get that information out of skills testing. So these are the pluses and the minuses of skills-based hiring. Let's move to our favorite topic, AI and automation. I seem to get questions more and more from hiring managers I train, from my clients, leaders I coach, um, AI and how it's impacting a selection process, automation and hiring. We spent quite a bit of time at the last webinar talking about specific examples of the benefits and, um, well, dangers, I suppose, of using AI and the biases that AI inherently um, it has baked in. Um, let's see what we can add to it. So 67, this is the statistics that my team put together. So based on research out there, 67% of HR leaders have adopted AI tools. For screening, 84% of talent leaders plan to use AI in 2026. I don't know if they really want to use it or if they have to use it because it's popular and you can no longer dig your head in the sand. AI sourcing agents now operate continuously and autonomously, and end-to-end recruiting automation is definitely rising. So the benefit of AI, just to recap our conversation from last time, is scale and efficiency. So when we talk about screening, especially for larger companies when they have a lot of positions open and they have a lot of candidates to screen, that is helpful. But automation doesn't automatically equal accuracy or predictability of performance, and that's the challenge. So when the volume increases, clarity becomes even more critical. So what are your thoughts, Tim, on utilizing AI from your perspective? Um,
What was that last line you just said again? It was brilliant. Can you repeat it? You
when the
said it more.
volume
Yeah.
when the volume increases, clarity is even more critical. Because to paraphrase it, you now you can get to a bad decision faster, to a bad hiring decision faster.
Yeah. It's awesome. I love it. That's one
And,
of those
and
ones.
that's like,
That's worth the price of the webinar alone.
okay, thank you.
That's
Uh,
one of those that could be a fortune cookie.
There you
Um,
go.
sorry, and then I derailed you on your question. So you're asking me, so for some input on the AI impact on hiring, which you said
Yeah, like
is
how
yeah,
do
it's
we reconcile this? That basically the trend of the historical trend or adage of hire slow, fire fast now is reversed. It's
Yeah,
completely.
you said something earlier to pull these two things together. What I've been wrestling with for 24 years is I think back to my beginning when I was sitting well dressed in a suit. Someone would come in with a cardstock piece of resume on a hard piece of paper. You know what I mean? And they were in a suit. They got up on purpose. They came early. We sat down. We talked about their job functions and such. That was the start of the interview process. I may have never seen them or their resume before. And my first impression was them in a suit sitting next to me that they got out of bed on purpose and had a reason to come do it, right? You can't, to your earlier point, do that 500 times in a day or a week. You would be exhausted. It's just physically impossible for you to have that many. But you can apply to 500 jobs in a day today.
Mhm,
So we've increased the velocity and the volume at which
mhm.
jobs can be posted and applied to. So we've increased exponentially the volume of data we have to get through. And so, what are we doing now after we did that in our digital age? We've now said, not only did we do this and take the humans out of it, let's take the humans out of it even more and have computer systems and algorithms tell us what BS we see on paper here and what BS we see on paper here, and put it together and let's find a marriage out of it. I mean, how
Yeah. And
ridiculous is
hope
that?
for the best. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like running a spy bot over town and say, "Hey, AI, tell me the next two people that are going to get married in this town, but just by looking in this room." I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So my point is taking the human element out of it has made it worse. So how do we do that? How do we use that better? Maybe we use it to fix our resumes a little bit, right? Don't not use it at all, like your last call was balance it and then also at the same time for customers is to find out what type of people they can hire that are using AI to help them get rid of some of the things that can be automated. Like the future workforce are folks that are using this stuff as part of their job to make them super efficient themselves. So you're getting more out of each employee. So not only should I say it shouldn't be used to help you hire, but it should be involved in how you hire, if that helps,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And with that higher volume, we still have to ensure the quality of hire. So that it presents an opportunity, and it's kind of exciting for us to see how this is going to evolve as we, well, not so much contain and control, but guide the where and how AI is used. It's going to be exciting to.
Thoughtfully leverage, maybe.
Yes, thought I like that. That's our goal too. Let's thoughtfully leverage AI. And this is it connects to my last point about data-driven hiring. So you can still use AI for automation. So you have the volume, but then that missing piece in between when we're marrying the candidate to the job, you want to make sure that it's a fit. And that's really the main point that I wanted to make today too. Um, so these are the general statistics about how many people or the percent of HR leaders using and hiring managers using AI tools in hiring and planning to use them. But I was curious to see what my followers on LinkedIn might say. And we had some good participation in this poll. So we conducted our own poll. How do you use currently AI in your hiring process? And that's how the percentages stacking up. Writing job descriptions, that's pretty innocuous. 48%, that's good. Screening resumes, 13%. Scheduling interviews, only 2%. And not using AI at all yet, but I guess looking forward to, um, as evidenced by the previous slide statistic, 38%. People want to use it, but a lot of them are still on the fence. They're looking to see what's shaking out. Um, is that what you're seeing, Tim, too, with your clients? Specifically, are they using AI to write resume or to write job descriptions and screen resumes, or how many of them are on the fence still?
Look, I have this dichotomy to do. Yes, I would say this is a decent poll. I think one of the things I'd find more is that they're using AI to record interviews and come up with transcripts. I'm seeing a lot of that,
Okay.
a huge increase in that in the past year. Um, the writing job descriptions, 100%. My big thing is to challenge is okay, is keeping an open mind, right? To me, I often challenge the power dynamic between the hiring group and the applicant. I often tell my customers, because they tend to like lay the rules. I want it my way. This is how it's supposed to be. This is that. And yeah, I used AI for the job description, but they better not have used AI on their resume. Wait a minute. You couldn't take the time to figure out some original thoughts and come up with a creative job description that matches all of your culture and your stuff. You let AI do it. And then you have a problem with me putting my thoughts and then having the person do it on the other side. So to me, I try to always balance both sides. Said another way, client has all these rules about what a great candidate looks like. I come back and say to my candidates and people I suffering, why would someone want to work for your company? I don't
Hmm.
know why it's a benefit. Maybe the company they work for is a lot better than yours. They offer a lot more incentives. They're going somewhere, they're doing something. So to me, I try to break each part of that into less of a power struggle. So I say, look, if you're doing this on your side and you're writing job descriptions using AI, fantastic. You should make your business more efficient. Just be more open-minded to someone that's using AI to fix their resume then, right? So that's where I use this stuff. Or when AI is recording a call and doing a transcript, let's say me and you are the frontline managers and Greg owns the company. Let's not interview and then send our transcript without the video and just send our notes to Greg. Because Greg might be like, you and Tatiana really love this candidate. I'm reading this. It comes out of context. Words on paper are different than you actually watching a video. So you have to keep in mind the various medium involved, the context, right? You had a great slide before that said people were even able to predict whether someone got a job without the transcript just by watching the video in two
Hmm.
minutes. So sometimes because 93% of communication is nonverbal. So I always say, be careful about saying, hey, should we hire this guy? And you guys send an interview transcript to your whole company, and five people say yes, seven people say no, when they've only really ascertained 7% of the communication standard to make that decision. And it's not a good way to go, right? So things to
Hmm.
be aware of, potential pitfalls. And I took way too long on that. Thank you.
No, you're fine. I really appreciate it. And thanks for bringing up that confirmation bias is what you referenced that we discussed in the previous webinar. And by the way, if you want to review the recording, just let us know. And I believe it should be posted on my website, greatpeoplemanagement.com, at some point soon. All of them will be posted. But we discussed in more detail all of those different biases that are involved and how confirmation bias specifically means that a decision to hire or not to hire, to like or not to like a candidate is typically made in the first few seconds. And then the rest of the time is spent confirming that decision. That's what Tim was referencing. All right, let's switch gears to the other shift, the third shift that we see remote and hybrid work. We've seen kind of this pendulum swing. We were all remote, then we're hybrid, then companies went, no, we're all going back to the office, and that backfired for some in some industries. Obviously, in other industries, it's imperative to be on site. You cannot build widgets in manufacturing space remotely. That's understandable. Um, so talking about flexibility, this is becoming an expectation, if not already, it's become an expectation that influences candidates' decisions to take the job. It is very important for people. Autonomy is now a core performance factor as well, because if you're going to have remote and hybrid work, how do you measure whether or not a person can work autonomously outside of structured and office environment? And how do you collaborate with the team? Communication and over communication is so important now. Again, how do you measure for that? Um, with remote and hybrid work, 70% say remote roles are easier to fill. What's your take on this shift? It's probably even more so in your wheelhouse, Tim, since you're helping organizations fill positions, different types of positions.
Yeah, I think one is this is to me one of the single greatest side benefits of the COVID pandemic, right? Is this shift. Because the conversation wasn't even being had. 9 out of 10 of the leaders with power had this old school mentality that people aren't working unless they're in their seats. And there's still way too much of that going on in people's mentality. You can't break it. You basically throw a rocket and hit someone over the age of 50, they believe that,
Yeah.
right? And I'm not being ageist, it's just true. It's the world they grew up in. The problem is that the bad apples spoil it for the bunch. There are quite a few people that do take advantage when they're working from home because left to their own accord, they don't have the level of self-accountability and the right muscle. The muscle's atrophied, right? So this Gen Z group that's out there that says, hey, I can do just as much from home and I can make all the rules. Well, you haven't really done anything yet. And you working from home, fiddling around on a computer is not productive. And honestly, what they're finding out is the folks that are half as good as they are get promoted faster because they show up for work. So there is an important balance here. Hybrid tends to be that balance. In
Mm.
order for you to grow, there's a lot of truth to thinking and thoughts being things and the ability to create. It's not easy to create at home in your pajama shorts or pajama pants, playing around with AI and spitting out spreadsheets. Honestly, those of you sitting at home doing that type of work that has very little human interaction and involvement, that along like software development, these are the things that AI is going to take away. So if I'm you and if I'm people that are out there, I would be looking for more hybrid or back on site jobs to get involved in the collaboration and involved in the company because some of the research that's out there now, like, look, a lot of stats kind of become out favorable for whoever's running the statistical anomaly, but I literally can tell you that this is probably mostly true, is that people less qualified that show up that have good personalities and people are seen. I have already proven in many of my companies are getting promoted than someone that might be more skillful that's working from home. So I know that's not exactly where this was
Interesting.
going, but the
No, that's an
balance
interesting
between,
observation.
yeah, employee flexibility, employee engagement, right? And that autonomy that flows throughout that. This is a delicate balance. I think leaving it up to it and coming up with a corporate strategy that lands you somewhere in the middle is probably the best option. Some flexibility, but also engagement means showing up, whether you guys get together. If you're a
Yes.
remote workforce all over the place, not getting together, you should mandatorily get together twice a year, not once at the Christmas party. You should make it mandatory. You should make it random. And honestly, the people that don't show up, you should downgrade them.
And what hybrid means is different for different companies. I'm sure it's case by case basis. Again, the industry, but the power of human connection is still important, no
Think
matter
about
what.
this. If everyone that's in your company, right? If you have 50 people, sorry to cut you off there. I just want to get this thought out. Let's say 20 of them show up 3 days a week in a hybrid schedule, and suddenly things go bad. And I'm not going to pick on Greg again. He just happens to be there. But if things go bad, and you've all collaborated with the people that show up every single week, and even if they're okay, but there's 10 people that work from home, right? And you've got to lay off five. I've found that clients are more likely to lay off five from home. It's easier. They don't have to see them every day. It's not the same as the human being that's showing up in the office. So
That's a,
if
yeah, that's a human connection. And with my next question, I know I'm leading the witness, but would you agree that it takes a special kind of person to be successful in a remote environment?
100%, I am less
Yeah.
productive at home, throwing myself under the
Okay.
bus.
And I've been working from home for the past 22 years. Well, yeah, 20 years at least. So I again, it's there's specific characteristics that can be measured to enable organizations to successfully place remote and hybrid employees. And I'm going to dig into that at the third webinar. I will share specific examples because we've done some studies, especially since 2020. It's been so interesting why some people were extremely productive and some people were they were just losing their marbles
Yeah,
because they had to be
process,
on Zoom all
strategy,
the time.
understanding a plan, all those things are huge. It makes sense, right? I
Yep.
didn't know that's what our third one was about. But I just got myself on a little tirade there. I pointed some challenges out, and I'm so
Yeah.
glad to hear that you have some solutions and some strategy. Because honestly, this is something that needs to be thoughtful, well
Yes.
planned out, methodical, have a process driven, and honestly, maybe even, I'm hoping some of your tests, your assessments help you decipher that. It does it?
Yeah. Yes. And that's what I
Awesome.
wanted to dig into. So this is where, again, a little bit of foreshadowing for the third webinar. Um, I love your perspective from outside my assessment world because I want to talk about the tools that enable organizations to successfully place remote and hybrid workforce. And then you may be able to chime in about the strategy because it's not just a matter of putting the right person in the right position. It's also about how do you communicate and bring the teams together in the remote and hybrid workforce, exactly what you were just talking about. I hear leaders talk to me a lot and ask questions a lot about how do I manage my remote team? If we're all remote, at least it's level playing field. But when you have hybrid, when half of your team shows up in the office and you're building more closer personal relationships with them, to your point, and then you have some people who are fully remote and they refuse to come to the office, or they're on the other side of the country and it's not feasible to bring them in to the office. Well, how do you manage that and still create an effective culture and still build connections? And I really believe it's possible. When people say it's not possible to build a connection, it's it, they mean it's not easy. Yes, I'll give you that. But it is possible. You just need to know what makes people tick, which brings us to the data-driven approach, the assessments. So when I say data-driven approach to hiring, to selection, to making um, really all human decisions in the workplace, we are talking about high-quality psychometric assessment tools. Those types of tools allow us to measure what the role requirements are, the roles and responsibilities. They allow us to measure people and then look for alignment and provide really good insights to the hiring managers, to leaders that enable them to conduct winning interviews, um, make ultimately a better hiring decision, and align people to jobs. That we're going to talk about the concept of job fit in just a little bit. And that's what helps predict performance. This is what is going to help build the culture, build the work, build a team of winners. When you're hiring winners, they want to be on the winning team. I've never met anybody who's fully engaged in losing. So it's difficult to do without assessments. You can do skills testing all day long. You can use AI to screen resumes for keywords. All that's great. But once you're in front of that person, or they're in front of a panel of interviewers, how do you make that decision? It is so critical. You need more data. And so, what the question I wanted to throw your way, Tim, um, is there a shift? What I'm seeing is that we're moving from do we like this candidate, kind of relying more on the resume, what they've done in the past, and especially the interview. Do we like this candidate based on the interview? To a better question, does this candidate align with what success requires now and in the future? Are you seeing that shift between the like the person versus being more strategic, or are we talking again just based on the leader? Are you seeing leaders becoming more intentional about defining success up front and then relying less on instinct and more on data?
Yeah, I find this as a challenge, right? As we have multiple generations in the workforce, right? And then multiple generations in size of companies and types of companies that leverage different value systems, right? So we gotta, on my side, we've become pretty adaptive to our client's style, right? If they're a traditionalist and they are stuck in sort of the conventional way of looking at things, what's nice about being a Gen Xer myself is that I'm pretty adaptable. I'm like considered the glue generation between the traditionalists and then the Gen Zers and those coming up. And we have five different generations of very different work mentalities in the workforce. And this is not meant to be a study of those things in this webinar right now. There's plenty of those out there, but you know, I will say it's different for different generation things, right? And many people have their own opinion about what a good resume looks like, whether they're 22 or 72, right?
Mhm.
And pick your flavor of different ones in between. And then there are folks that are looking for creative answers and a lot of more upfront work. As you go down the scale, there's more upfront work that people are expecting, more data, more understanding, which those are the future leaders. I feel like people in my generation are a little more balanced, and those that are older tend to be a little bit more still work on instinct, still work on what they see, what they hear, what they feel, the human interaction. That's actually getting a little bit too lost as you go down. So again, this is like the AI derivative we talked about before. To me, this kind of thing comes to balance. And if your data is just a resume, which could be lying, there could be a lot of things. Sometimes people just interview well. The average person lies 11 times a day, even to their own family. Everybody lies. It's a great book. You should look at it, right? Or exaggerates the truth, right? And so what do we have here? We have hope, right? Past experience and a record of what they say they've done and what their resume says they have done. A lot of that is hope driven. Well, that's only half of the pie, right? And a lot of people are skipping the other half, which is the validation portion. How do you know that this is an actual skill that the person can employ and could actually benefit the job they're going to go into? Assessments, and then approving and verifying that there's some other reasonable, accomplished professional human, i.e., a reference, that guided your work before that said, yeah, Tatiana did a great job. So you can't skip steps. Shortcuts are called shortcuts because they're hard and they often cause problems. Otherwise, they would be called the way, right? They're meant to be difficult, right? And so you're actually making your life difficult by saying, that's okay. We only need to do this one interview. We'll skip the other five interviews. This guy's great. Let's hire him. I like what he said. He seems like he's a good golfer. Let's move forward. And then a month later, you're like, how come the place is burning down? Right? Like, well, you hired the guy that you thought was a good golfer, and he got on the range and said he was a 10 handicap, and he almost killed grandma down the street with his first drive. He was full of it from the beginning. Anyway, I'm telling my own stories now.
Well, I love the stories because you're basically making my point here, right? Your leaders really need assessments to make better hiring decisions as opposed to instinct. And it's actually not a new concept. It's been around for decades. And so we have data to prove that best in class companies actually had been using pre-employment assessments. And that's why they're best in class. We can help organizations increase hiring efficiency and quality of hires. We talked about with increase in volume, hiring precision and efficiency. Um, Companies that use pre-employment assessments see 50% drop in hiring costs. And of course, that varies. I've seen much higher numbers here, 90% a better chance of hiring a great person. 57% reduction in workers' comp claims. That's your example, Tim. uh, and reducing time to hire and dramatic decrease in turnover. I was just working with an organization. They had 265% turnover. It was costing them millions, millions. And they reduced that turnover to down to 36% in 1 year. And that's because they implemented assessments and also had the discipline to stick to that process and to become choosy instead of being desperate, instead of hiring on instinct and knee-jerk reactions or on a
Yeah, this is an
recommendation.
insanely personal thing. Try telling someone they're a bad dresser, a bad driver, a bad kisser. That doesn't usually go over well. It stings, right? And so then to look at someone and say, you're bad at hiring. I walk around telling people, I'm bad at hiring for me. And I've placed 4,000 people in 24 years, and someone paid me 4,000 times. That's for a fee. There's a lot more without a fee involved, right? And so I say that as someone that works in the trenches is to say, this is insanely personal and your ego is in the way. You have to first admit that you're not good at this. And I tell people, for someone that's an expert at this, I'm not good at it for me. So why is that the case? Is because you and your own personal, subjectivity is disrupting your hiring process, and you're cutting corners because you think you like someone. To our other point in the beginning, you're making a decision in 5 minutes. This person's a good person. They have good character. I know I can read people. That's great. They might be a good person, but they might not be great for the job you're trying to hire them for. There are a lot of great people out there. Go to church with them, have coffee with them, go to a game with them. That's different from them doing the thing you need to get done to grow your business.
I hear this all the time, Tim, too, um, with my clients and my prospects. Like if I'm training 25 hiring managers on how to properly deploy an assessment tool, pre-implement assessment tool, inadvertently there will be a couple who will say, "Oh, I can just read people. I can interview really well." And that's fine and dandy, but what about the people around you? What about people sitting next to you on the panel? And what is your success rate? Is it a flip of a coin, maybe 50-50 chance? And plus hire when you miss hire, it doesn't mean that that person is a bad person. If you don't fit the job, it doesn't make you a bad person, it just makes you a poor fit. Um, and that's where the power of job fit comes in, because we find the studies again show year after year for decades superior producers fit their jobs. It's uh, it's kind of like I go back. Let's see our time here. I'll tell the story about the rabbits real quick. It's like you don't have to teach rabbits how to swim. If you've heard about the rabbits who move into the woods and they do what rabbits do well, they reproduce. They have lots of babies, and so like all parents, they want to have the best for their children. But like a lot of parents can identify with, they have limited resources. So they connected with other animals in the woods and they pool their resources and they build a school for different animals, baby animals. First day of school, rabbits go there and it's a running class. Can rabbits run? Of course. They're so
Mhm.
jazzed up, they love it. They're built for it. It's like in their DNA. They're like, this school thing is going to work out. Second day, it's a jumping class. Can they jump? Absolutely. They're really good at it. In fact, they're better than most other animals that attend that class. And the third day, it's a swimming class. Wah, wah, wah. So they just fail. They didn't do really well. So what happens, and what happens in most organizations, if we train them, we coach them hard enough, they will get good at it, won't they? Well, the very training that was given to the poor rabbits was an attack on who they are, because parents, in their infinite wisdom, pulled them out of their jumping and running class because they're already good at it. Put them in swimming class 3 times a day, three classes of swimming, and rabbits just quit school because they were not utilizing their talents. That causes burnout when you don't use the talents. And what they were asked to do was just not a good fit. No matter how much they trained, even a superior swimmer rabbit was never going to be as good as even a mediocre fish. So when they quit, they started their own company where they hired birds to fly, fish to swim, and rabbits to run. And that story illustrates the point that it's a win-win situation when you use the tools to ensure job fit. um, Magic happens. Monday doesn't feel like punishment. People actually want to come to work. I truly believe people are the foundation of every business, partially because if we ensure the job fit and people want to come to work, and if we can replicate that around the world, If people love to be where they are, they feel they're contributing, they believe in in the company mission and vision, and they're utilizing their talents. I mean, gosh, we may not even have wars around the world. I mean, it would be a really happy place, a really happy planet. I know it's not possible to apply uniformly, but we can all certainly try. So, what is the job fit and why it's so powerful outside of the rabbit story? It's the fit with the job. Can this person deal with the demands of the position effectively and where it's not an attack on who they inherently are? Do they fit the team and the manager? Do they like to be around these people every day? How do they react to the environment? How do they work together with their teammates to solve problems? And do they fit the culture? Are they motivated by the mission statement? Um, by where this bus is driving? Do they want to get to that destination? Or are they just passengers on this bus because they're exchanging time for money?
You did a great job of defining your why, which a lot of people don't have the real passion for what they do. I literally believe that by helping companies figure this out, we'll make the world a better place. And I love that you added that in there. And that story was awesome. Thank you for sharing it. It's worth the time to go into it because I think one more adage to that, I know you're going somewhere else, is I think too often companies get complacent. And they even tell me frequently, especially in smaller companies, these 20 people I have here are really loyal to me. We've figured it out. And some of those people are great. But often we find they're actually not even in the right roles. They're just low grade stress managing better, or they've flocked into a position that they're good at, to the rabbit analogy, where they're doing the things here, but they're actually dropping the ball on a lot of other things that they've taken on over the years. And a company wonder why it's stagnant, and they almost consider their internal employees off limits. This stuff works, and it's hard work, but you also have to do it on your internal employees to find out where, to your point, what if what you consider your ace employee is on the verge of burnout or suddenly leaves for health reasons? Those health reasons, most of that stuff that happens comes from stress.
Yeah.
And it's the number one source of stress for people is their money. Number two is people. And these are what these situations are helping you try to solve. Just wanted to add that adage to it.
Yes, and I'm glad you bring this up. People can do anything for a short period of time, but they will fail the jobs or they will snap and quit without even another job lined up because they don't fit the job. So I always use the rubber band analogy. People like rubber bands. We can stretch, and everybody has a certain stretching capacity, and it's great. And we sometimes we even wear it in our sleeves. It's like, look at me, I'm in the wrong job. I'm like the best rabbit swimmer. I can I can swim there and back across the lake like 3 times, and you don't even realize that until one day you wake up and you go, I can't do this anymore. That rubber band just snapped because you stretch it too far, too long, and it wasn't obvious to those outside and even to you. So it's our responsibility as leaders to deploy systems and solutions, improve that hiring process to ensure the fit between the person and the job. So I wanted to go a little deeper into this, how we ensure this with the assessment in the minutes that we have remaining, and why assessments play a key role in ensuring a job fit. Well, because people's strengths and weaknesses are not written all over them. It's not like you can approach somebody, knock them on the forehead, and the pop-up appears that says, here are my strengths, here are my weaknesses. We don't know what lies beneath the water surface. People show only 10% of who they really are. That's the tip of the iceberg. That's what you see through day-to-day interactions, even if you work with people side by side for years. But the 90%, what you don't see, that shows up later, often in stressful situations, who the person really is. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Remember, I also said the good, the potential, their true potential that's uncovered, that lays dormant, can be below the water surface. We want to uncover that in the selection process. And I'm glad, Tim, you brought up the existing employees. What about existing employees? You can use these assessments not just on the hiring side. Let's say it's a company that's status quo right now. They've just hired everybody they needed to hire. They need to look at their existing workforce and see how maybe they can do some internal redeployment according to talent. So maybe we need to put a project team together and we need to ensure that they're going to work well together and collaborate. This assessment digs into what makes a person productive that's below the water surface. And remember, it was not the tip of the iceberg that sank the Titanic, just food for thought. It was what they didn't see.
Yeah,
We
this is
talked,
fluid. It's fluid. It's not just one. You have to think of like blood work, right? If you draw blood and you're trying to check your health, that is a snapshot to what your blood is doing in that moment. After eating, after sleeping, or after traveling or doing, your blood work can look very different a week later. Same thing in your business. And maybe you don't do that every week because then you can assess everybody every single week and then you're an assessment, no one's getting any work done. But maybe it's a routine, maybe it's annual, like an annual checkup. With the rest of your stuff that you're doing here, there should be an annual checkup on your people to make sure you're having the right people doing the right jobs in the right time. And people change, their ambitions change, their lives change, right? Maybe you add, just like you have open enrollment, you have a process that has you re-engage this process because this is a constantly changing. What I mean by fluid is it's a constantly changing, it's a moving thing, like water, right? To your Titanic analogy and what to look out for. So that's, just an important thing to think about, right? You don't just do this once and you're done. Like working out. That's the hard part about working out and staying in shape. If you go, I went to the gym once this year. I'm a workout person. Like once you go, you got to keep going, and you got to go like 3 or 4 times a week forever to
you
maintain
gotta
your
flex,
health.
yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta flex that muscle. So in the interest of time, I skipped over a couple of slides. What I skipped over is more statistics from companies that utilize the job fit approach. I think I've sold you on the idea of how important job fit is. The other slides that I've skipped over were Department of Labor's recommendations, guidelines for selecting an appropriate assessment tool in the hiring process. I have that document summarized. It's on our website. I also created a scorecard that helps you select an appropriate assessment for in your application, what to look for so that you comply with EEOC and Department of Labor's guidelines for assessment and testing in the workplace. So I wasn't going to go through that in too much detail because I promised to show you the job fit in in real life. So we're going to be using PXT Select Assessment as an example. It's a sophisticated psychometric assessment tool that measures 20 traits on a scale from 1 to 10. And what we do, and it's an important piece of the job fit puzzle, is we first need to understand what success looks like in that specific role. We assess, we can assess, there's different methods to creating a performance model. This is an example of a performance model. Shaded area represents that benchmark of success, where we're saying that the successful individual or top performing A players are scoring they possess a greater sense of urgency. They're very diplomatic. They are outgoing. They are creative, strong-willed. They question a status quo. Details. So these are the traits that are key to this role. Then we're assessing the candidate in this case, or you can assess an existing employee if you want to engage in some performance management and coaching. And we are going to lay over their individual scores over that performance model to see where the gaps are and where the candidate's strengths are. And we used top performers in those roles across the country. And we also align it with the Department of Labor's ONET occupational titles. And that's drawn from that. This is just to show you the job categories. And I think at this point, it's about 300 job titles in that library. Then we can also tailor that library performance model with this free tool available to anyone. It's a job analysis survey. Tell us about what the job requires. And these are some examples. It's a quick questionnaire. And finally, let's identify at least three individuals in that role, assess them, and the aggregate of their scores is going to help us create a valid benchmark of success, that target. Essentially, it's going to enable you to clone your top people. And you do not need to settle on B players or C players. 80-20 rule no longer applies if you use this program effectively. This is a team of three people. You can see where they all fall on all these scales, how to communicate better with each other. So you can use this for team development, team communication. I do team development workshops all the time. The selection report is going to give you some interview questions, going back to using a data-driven approach. I'm just trying to tie all the loose ends in the final minutes here. How this data translates into tangible insights that you can use during the interview. You have at least 2 interview questions for every single of the 20 scales. How powerful is that? Then you have management tips from the coaching report to make a more informed decision. One assessment in the case of PXT Select produces 13 different reports that can be used strategically to make the most informed hiring decisions, make onboarding better and faster, make coaching easier, the communication better, collaboration across teams and cross-functional teams much better. So the entire organization can achieve better results faster. So with 60 seconds left, questions. Greg, Amara, it looked like you were driving. I don't know if you can chime in with questions, but Greg, maybe you go first.
Yeah, I mean, I am, yeah, like I said last time, I know I'm in the learning seat, and I don't think I have a question, but I'm learning a lot from you guys. What you guys say is pure gold. It makes sense, and I like that you say it with humility and recognize there's nuance to everything, as opposed to just a hammer hitting a nail all the time. You guys really, um, yeah, you're finding. I mean, AI. You find the strength, you find the weakness. You're looking for the sweet spot, not just hey, it's good or bad. And I'm finding that very helpful. So I wish I was at a spot where like I mentioned, I thought I was going to be hiring somebody, and then I had a slight change in our uh, expectations for the next few months. But I expect to, by the end of the year or early next year, be hiring. And I wish we were doing it now so that I could take what I'm hearing and put it into practice before I forget it. So, but I just appreciate you both sharing.
It's
It's
a
very
good thing
helpful.
we're recording, Greg.
Yes, there you go. I'll have to rewatch again. So, but I say this with all sincerity. This is really, really good stuff, and I'm sure. Yeah, you love for. I wish there were more people hearing it from you guys as well, because it's you guys are saying it's just, yeah, it's really good. I can tell you know what you're doing, and it is very insightful and nuanced, and that's what I like, is that there is thought behind it. So for me personally, as I've the few hires I've done, I feel like I can get a feel for who the person is, not as well as the test would show in terms of their behavior, but when it comes to their technical skills and how they think and how they what their skills really are like, I'm like, I know I have no clue. I'm like, yeah, they're just telling me something. I'm reading something. I don't know this stuff. So I really look forward to continue to work with you guys as my needs. I know I will need it in the future. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Thanks for
Yeah, I
being here.
appreciate the addition. I got to chime in one thing. I mean, I just the input you gave last time too, Greg. Thanks for coming again. Is we don't know what we don't know. And what's great
Yeah.
about being humble is that you basically said, "Hey, I know I don't know these things," and now I realize where that is, because it's for some reason for decades has been a high DIY business, right? Like all
Yeah.
I have to do is hit my finger with a hammer or have my wife be like, that painting is crooked to realize that I shouldn't be doing stuff around the house, right? Like it's driving me crazy the way you hung that mirror. And then if I take the mirror off, there's 9 holes in the wall. And she's like, well, now we can't sell the place because you thought you were Tim the Tool Man Taylor, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy in some areas, but this is a funny one. And you can tell Tatiana and I love it. Like, how do you take a life's work and, boil it down to an expertise? And so a lot of
Yeah.
technicians, which I'm sure you are in your business too, is to me, I always go back to the 4 hour work week for folks. Tim Ferriss said it really well. Like, how do you work 4 hours in a week? His whole idea of that is like, you should focus. If you focus on what you do best, you really
Yeah.
only need to do 4 focused hours of work per week. And that would get people
Yeah.
really excited. If the book sat on the shelf for a lot of people, it's like a 15, maybe 17-year-old book at this point. But his point
Yeah.
was outsource the rest, because if somebody has tens of thousands of hours focused on this and has done it and done it well, that's who you want on your team. And so notice that it's a team approach. So anyway, Tatiana, this is awesome. When we talk through it, I come up with new ideas. So
Yes.
I don't want to, I
Yeah.
don't
Thank
know if
you.
Amanda had a question or anyone had
I'm
there, but hopefully as we send this out, people do. And I think saving this on your website and our LinkedIn so people can catch it. I think getting Greg's feedback that we did well, that always makes me feel good because I never
yeah.
know if my
Yeah.
stories land.
No, I want you to know they do, and that's where I'm just like, yeah, both of you guys, the data, the analogies, yeah, it's yeah, my experience has just been okay. This is murky, and you guys you bring clarity to it, and in a way that I definitely, I'm sure most small business owners are not afraid. I mean, I guess yeah, it sounds like even large. People have there's just pitfalls all over the place, and I'm just like, oh yeah, these are huge decisions you're making in terms of financial and culture and things like that. So yeah,
Yeah, you'd be surprised. This is universal. It's not small business or large business. I've seen it across the board. Thank you for your feedback. Amara, did you want to add anything? I'm not sure if you're able to chime in.
No, thank you. All of this was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for joining. We're 5 minutes over. I think we did well. All things
dude,
considered,
appreciate it.
covered the main points. Join us on the next webinar where we'll dig a little deeper into how to evaluate candidates that actually fit remote and hybrid roles. See you guys then.
Awesome. All right,
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
thanks.
everybody.